going inside the issues of our community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
In 2007, they may seem like something time passed by. From their introduction in 1889, electric street railway cars, trolleys, were the biggest things in Cincinnati's streets, carrying tens of thousands of people every day. Beginning in 1926, the city system diversified with gasoline buses, rubber-wheeled trolley buses, and the breakthrough PCC cars, making Cincinnati nationally recognized as the transit laboratory for the nation by 1939. When the last trolley pulled into the garage on April 29, 1951, the era of the streetcars seemed to be over. But half a century later, against the backdrop of increasingly difficult commutes, sharp increases in gas prices, heightened environmental awareness, and new attitudes about urban culture, cities across America are once again embracing streetcars. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. Over the last several years, a group of private citizens have been exploring the idea of building a modern streetcar line in downtown Cincinnati. They are not nostalgic trolley buffs trapped in the past. In fact, across the United States, large and small cities from Little Rock to Tampa to Atlanta, cities are building modern streetcar systems as both transportation and development tools. The premier system is in Portland, Oregon. Since the initial phase of what is now a 4.8-mile downtown loop was announced in 1997, approximately $2.8 billion of new development has occurred downtown, 55% within a block of the line. The city of Cincinnati is now in the early stages of a study to determine the feasibility of a streetcar line for downtown. To discuss that work, I am joined this morning by Michael Moore, the city architect for the city of Cincinnati, who is heading the streetcar study. Mr. Moore's office is part of the Department of Transportation and Engineering. And Chris Bortz, a member of the Charter Committee and a member of Cincinnati City Council. Michael, welcome to Newsmakers. Chris, welcome back.
Dan, thank you.
Streetcars. When I think of streetcars, somebody says that to me, Michael, I instantly say, oh, transportation device, and I put it in that category. I was trying to hint at something here. How are modern streetcars, how are cities looking at streetcars today?
They are transportation devices. They are a way to get people from point A to point B to connect up various attractions and institutions and such. But what they've really done in cities recently is focus development around a particular line. And they've been remarkable tools. You alluded to Portland. With 55% of their development concentrated around that line. It's really improved cities by making them a more walkable, livable city where you're not dependent upon a car for your transportation.
Chris, in Cincinnati, what would a streetcar do for us that buses can't do for us? Why invest in a system in the downtown when we already have buses running all over downtown?
Well, I think there's a couple things that it does for us. First of all, there's an emotional difference between getting on a bus and getting on a streetcar. And it may sound a little strange, but even a dedicated rubber tire line that just circles a compact area and does so on a pretty regular clip doesn't give you the same feeling, the same passion for the area, the same interest in a quick commute as a dedicated hardline trolley. There's something about looking at the tracks, seeing them on the street, and gravitating towards the car. It just feels easier, it feels more convenient. And it's cleaner, it's quieter. So it's more attractive to simply travel from one point in a confined area like a downtown, our downtown is pretty spread out. So there's something about getting on that trolley car and going quickly from, say, the riverfront to Findlay Market. And if you can see that line and you know where the track is, then you can always find it. You don't have to memorize the bus schedule and et cetera.
There's a couple things embedded in that answer that you just had. One, from a transportation point of view, I've heard some people say what this would allow people to do, because let's face it, we're a car city still, but if you came downtown for a day, but you were going to make a day of it, you could park once and then use the streetcar to go every place else. You wouldn't have to move your car from the riverfront to the center of the city to over the Rhine or whatever. Is that a thought?
Exactly, and it makes, you can think of them almost like a moving sidewalk. If you can put your car one place and leave it and use the moving sidewalk to get you from Fountain Square to Findlay Market, back to the riverfront, to a Reds game. That's a day, and that's parking one time, not having to hassle with moving your car around. They're a way to accelerate pedestrians from one place to the other, to shorten their walk, because when you think about it, most folks don't want to walk that distance from the riverfront to Findlay Market. But if it's a 5-minute ride on a streetcar, it's infinitely more possible.
All three of us have been out to Portland. We've all had the chance to see the streetcar, not together, but I mean we've all been there. So I just reveal that. One of the things, Chris, you were saying is that there's this different emotional connection with the streetcar, and I'm not thinking about that again about nostalgia or anything, but one of the things I heard in Portland over and over again is that once developers saw that the city was investing in something and putting it in the street, I mean, buses, the routes can change anytime. Once you lay the tracks down, developers know where that's going to be for a long time, and they're willing to take a risk too. Is that, and you have a background in development, is that again something important? And in economic sense, is that important?
Oh, absolutely. The permanence of a streetcar can create a kind of trust that the system is going to stay in place and continue. I mean, the system we had for decades. And when we finally uprooted it, we did it because of the pretty aggressive lobby of the big three car manufacturers, not because streetcars weren't working. In fact, they were working really well. But I think what developers are really interested in seeing, because there is a pent-up demand for urban dwelling, and we've been told again and again and again for years, if you really want to turn Cincinnati around, you really want to turn that corner, you have to increase your population in your urban core. And this is a way to do that. Now, developers are anxious, I think, to build. We're seeing it already. We're seeing an early renaissance. They want more momentum to come behind it and really, really advance it aggressively. And then, not just the visitor to downtown, but the downtown resident who wants to go get their groceries, let's say at Findlay Market, and wants to get on a streetcar to do it and not have to get their car out of the garage. That is the real amenity.
You know, talking about amenities, these cars in Portland are very sleek. They're made in the Czech Republic. Correct. They're very sleek. They have lots of nice features to them. Want to talk a little bit about the features of a modern streetcar?
Well, as you mentioned, they're very sleek. They're very clean. I don't know if you have any shots of the interiors of the streetcars.
They're going to be coming up in just a second.
But it's almost like an airplane in a way, but with fewer seats, because the trips are shorter, so people do tend to stand. Portland does a very nice thing of integrating a lot of their other transportation modes. They have bike hooks in the streetcars, so if you use your bike for your commute, but you want to shorten that distance a bit, you can take your bike, hang it on a hook vertically to save that space in the streetcar cab, and use that to get around. So
that was an amazing thing, because I'm used to the bikes that you have to put on the front of the bus or whatever, and the bus has to stop and slows everything down. In these, people just brought their bikes right in, but then hung them up and they were out of the way. It was just so slick. It was really neat.
It is really neat. Yeah. You know, well, some people are pretty passionate about their bikes and don't feel too good about them hanging on the front of the streetcar. They want to keep them close. You know, your bike is your baby.
So, other practical questions here. Won't putting a streetcar in the middle of Cincinnati streets, downtown streets, just really make downtown traffic and or downtown parking a big problem?
Not really. One of the beauties of streetcars is they run with traffic. They're a lower speed mode of transit. They run with traffic. The Portland streetcars are articulated so you can handle sharper turns. It's not like a light rail train that's like 90 feet long that you need a tremendously long radius to make those turns.
Which Portland has as well. They have light rail too.
But it can run, with traffic. They're also a lot more economical to construct. Being a lighter vehicle, the construction of it, the track slab is only about a foot thick. You don't get into utility relocations such as that. And the way that you can sort of handle this with some of the station locations, with some of the stop locations, you don't necessarily have to strip parking off. You can pull that out as a bump out like we have on 4th Street. Folks are probably familiar with that. And that's where you pick up the trolley. You pick it up there at the bump out, and all that parking can be retained.
When you're talking about, go ahead, I'm sorry, Chris.
I just want to jump onto the back of that. You said, won't it make traffic downtown more problematic? Traffic downtown is only problematic for a very short period of the day when people are rushing to get out of town. So I want to slow them down. I want to slow everybody down. For too many years, the city said, no, we can't have trees in the sidewalks because it impedes the flow of pedestrian traffic. All the streets must be one way because that's the most efficient way to move cars out of the city. Well, we're learning from new experiments in departments of transportation all over the country that it's better to have every street be 2 lanes and in both directions. We can recapture some of the vitality of the street life by not having little mini highways in the downtown grid.
Which also is a factor on safety because the more people you put on the sidewalks, the more people who are getting on and off streetcars or light rail or whatever it is, the less likelihood that you're going to have crime because there's more people there. It's not a lonely place. All of that factors in.
No question, Dan. The idea of creating density is about creating street life, and that has a life in and of itself. It creates its own spirit for the community.
Chris, you were talking about the need to attract people and the desire for people to come downtown and live. In doing some research for this, one of the things I stumbled across is that Portland's become the biggest in-migration city in the United States, and Portland is sort of geographically, historically, sort of the same size we are, about 2 million more or less. But people are, by the 100,000 plus, are moving inside the city limits. I mean, people are coming there because it's a magnet.
It's extraordinarily telling. Now, they did some other things too.
Oh yeah, it's not just the streetcar.
Right, their urban development boundary and so on. But what it tells us here is we have that opportunity. People identify with the core. People identify with an urban setting. And all those big companies that have located in downtown, they are constantly bringing in international young talent who want to see an urban environment. How are you going to relocate someone from Madrid or Paris to Cincinnati if you can't offer something interesting in an urban setting?
All of which have street railways or mass transit of some site, Mike?
And that's a very interesting point. Portland has grown their population in that 25 to 34 group by about 10%, a little less than 10%. Cincinnati's lost population in that class. One of the things that we hear from a lot of the big corporations is it's hard for, particularly in architecture and urban design, the folks say it's
which
hard
is your
for,
background.
Which is my background. It's very hard for us to recruit talent. We get great talent out of the University of Cincinnati, but they always go somewhere else. They want to go someplace where their lifestyle is that urban character where they can live in town, and we don't support that here. And this is a method that we could support that and capture those folks, keep that great talent that we've got here.
Again, a practical question. You were talking about the shallowness of the bed that is necessary to do this. You don't have to move all the utilities and all that kind of stuff. But what does it cost? I mean, is there a per mile average cost to build something like this?
It varies greatly. Portland built theirs, the first phase, for about $15 million a mile. Kenosha, Wisconsin just finished a trolley. They used some renovated PCC cars. They built theirs for about $3 million a mile. It's really going to be dependent a lot on the particular city, and that's part of the reason we're doing this study, so we can get to that.
Kenosha, Wisconsin, pretty small place. I mean, another thing that's frequently said about Cincinnati and mass transit, public transit in various times, we're not big enough to handle this. Kenosha, Wisconsin, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Winston-Salem, North Carolina is looking at it.
Winston-Salem?
Mm-hmm. Winston-Salem's looking at it to connect the medical school with a new technical campus that they're building close to downtown.
Chris, what about, I know we're in the early parts of the study and we're looking at feasibility and there's no roots yet, but what are some of the things that you would think need to be connected if we do something like this?
Well, let's assume that we decide that downtown is the appropriate place to begin with phase 1.
Okay.
I think you connect the big boys. You connect the stadiums, you connect the CAC, you connect the Aronoff Center, you connect Fountain Square, you connect Music Hall, Finley Market. You essentially identify the key public areas, the key cultural institutions, the key retail institutions or locations, and you try to tie them together as much as possible, recognizing they don't have to be right by them. I mean, you can have a block or two on either side. But I think those are the dots that you would want to try to connect.
And again, to reinforce in these cities, other cities, they're using it as a development tool. Portland purposely ran it into the Pearl District, which was basically a burned out warehouse district originally, which now, super valuable land, almost completely developed. Now they've extended down to the southwest, again, an area that needs to be developed. So when you raise Over the Rhine, and we talk about what can we do in Over the Rhine, this is a development tool for our poorest areas.
No question. And certainly whether it's part of phase 1 or part of phase 2, you want to connect the university area also to the city, to downtown. So you're going to have to go through Over the Rhine one way or the other. And of course the Over the Rhine as a neighborhood has great opportunity to help advance the city to a new level of urban living.
Chris raised something here about if this study determines that downtown is the right place to start. The other alternative is to start in Uptown at UC with the university and the medical center and do that loop. Why are you focusing on downtown first? Why are you doing the feasibility study here?
We're looking, partly for that redevelopment potential. We're trying to get folks concentrated in the core. There's a lot of things happening in Uptown that we're looking to see how they're going to shake out. We've got a little bit going on with the transportation study there to look at the interchange on I-71. Those things are going to take a little time to coalesce. I can tell you that we've done some brainstorming about loops up there, and there are a couple of really great possibilities. But we're really trying to get the focus downtown and the core for its redevelopment potential.
As you can tell, I'm very interested in this topic, and we're going to have you back. I'm basically running out of time, but how long will it take to do this study?
The study will be done about the end of April, early part of May.
So this is pretty quick.
It's pretty quick.
Okay.
We're going fast.
Thank you for being here, but I want to give people an opportunity. If you would like to explore a modern streetcar system for yourself, there's a great opportunity next month. On Friday, February the 26th, John Schneider of the Alliance for Regional Transit will lead another group of Cincinnatians to Portland to focus on the streetcar system. Over the last several years, 268 Cincinnatians, including my wife and I, have made this trip, and I can tell you it's worth it. The intensive work day is on Friday, but most people stay for the weekend to explore and enjoy Portland on their own. If you're interested, email John Schneider at John Schneider, all run together, at protransit.com. And thank you very much, and stay tuned after the break. A Cincinnatian who has been trained by former Vice President Al Gore to spread his famous slideshow on global warming.
Mount Kilimanjaro, 30 years ago and last year. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro. If this were to go, sea level worldwide would go up 20 feet. This is what would happen in Florida. Around Shanghai, home to 40 million people. The area around Calcutta, 60 million.
Al Gore's slideshow on global warming became the basis for the movie Inconvenient Truth. Now he is training 1,000 people to spread the message. Welcome back. I am joined now by Mary Clare Rietz, who has recently completed training by Al Gore as a climate change manager with the Climate Change Project. Ms. Rietz works for the local office of the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice. Mary Clare, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you very much.
So this is real recent. You went through the training, a week ago or so?
Last Thursday through Saturday. I was in Nashville with Mr. Al Gore providing the training.
And what was that like? I mean, first off, let me ask you, why did you get involved in this? Why did you care about this?
Yeah. Last August, I saw the movie An Inconvenient Truth, and I have to say, before that time, global warming lived someplace at the periphery of my consciousness as sort of this source of vague sense of anxiety. I should be doing something about this, but never really rose to the top of the priority list. And seeing An Inconvenient Truth and the powerful images and the power of the information that Al Gore conveys really brought the issue of global warming from out here and plunked it right in the center of my consciousness and really of my life. And as a result of that, left that theater really looking for a way to respond. Right away went to the website that is identified at the end of the movie, climatecrisis.net.
Right.
And saw lots of good information about how individuals can make changes in their lives, etc. But also happened to notice that Al Gore was going to be training 1,000 people to give his slideshow, sort of a citizen approach, grassroots approach to spreading the message. I noted that, but didn't necessarily think much more about it. In the weeks that followed, I started looking around, thinking about what is it in our city, in Cincinnati, that might be happening around global warming. And one of the things I learned was that Mayor Mark Mallory had just last summer signed the United States Climate Protection Agreement.
And what does that practically mean for our city?
So what that means is that we've agreed to fulfill 10 points or 10 initiatives that we as a city can do to reduce carbon emissions generally. And I started thinking about those 10 things and how, just as a citizen, happened to come up with 4 ideas for ways that we in Cincinnati might fulfill that agreement, and actually wrote those ideas down, linked each idea to one of the points of the climate agreement, and went down to one of Mayor Mallory's Mayor's Night In sessions and sat down and had 5 minutes and shared those with him. And one of those ideas was linked to the last point in the agreement, which is to educate the public. And the idea I shared with Mayor Mallory at that time was, let's recruit 1 or more people here in Cincinnati to apply for and hopefully be selected to be trained by Al Gore. Left that meeting. Couple days later, started thinking to myself, why shouldn't I apply? Why not me? And in fact, I decided to go ahead and do that. Go ahead.
With the training, what was the most surprise? I mean, obviously you'd seen Inconvenient Truth. You'd been doing some real thinking about this. What was the biggest surprise to you in the training?
Well, I would say the 2 things that impacted me the most, the 2 things that emerge as the most prominent. One was the science, and seeing, of course, being in Al Gore's presence, he provided the training himself, and seeing how much over the years, how much science he has learned. He had a world eminent geoscience expert up there with him who served as a resource but really didn't say much, because it was clear that this world eminent expert completely trusted and respected Al Gore's knowledge on the subject himself. So sort of becoming with Al Gore a student of this global warming science that is just gathering more and more astounding data every day.
What you've now agreed to do is you've been trained to go out and give a presentation. How long is that presentation? If a group wanted to bring you in, how long is that presentation?
Well, the nice thing is that we've been given flexibility to work with the presentation. When he gives it, it's probably about a 90-minute thing. He has 800 slides. He usually shows about 300 or 400. The longest we would probably do would be about that amount, but we can cut it down to be half an hour with maybe 15 minutes of a question and answer period.
Is what fits into a lot of speaking situations.
Right.
Now, one set of groups that will be interested in are environmentally based groups.
Sure.
Will want to bring you in. But what about groups of people who, one, maybe are suspicious about the whole thing about global warming, or suspicious that human beings have anything to do with it, or can do anything?
Yes.
Are you interested in those groups?
In fact, it's really, I'm glad you asked that question, because during the training, what happened for me was that I became most interested in getting in front of those people. Because I think all of us have been in that situation at one point. I described at the beginning how it's just this kind of thing that, maybe I thought I should pay attention to, but I feel like what I've learned is information that can address all of the things that you just talked about, the misconceptions, the misunderstandings, the confusions that have emerged about whether or not there's scientific consensus about global warming, which in fact there is. And so that I'm most excited to talk to folks who maybe aren't sure or don't know very much.
And do you have things that go along with this, things that you can hand out, so people after your presentation that can go off and do some of their own readings?
Yes.
And we have about a minute left here.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much information on the internet, but I'll try to simplify it for folks, provide some handouts. One of the categories of audiences that I'm most excited to talk to are corporations and large institutions. And I plan to gather information that geared particularly to them, that would show them what their peers across the country are already doing to cut down their carbon emissions and innovate ways to become more efficient.
And we're just about out of time, but the point is, this is just to let people know that you're available to do this. And is there a charge for your presentation?
It's absolutely free.
Absolutely free. So let me let people know how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
If you'd like to arrange for a presentation by Mary Clare Rietz, she can be reached at Mike Mary Clare, all spelled out together, at Cincy, CINCI.RR.com, and that's the best way to reach you.
That's right. Absolutely.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work, and let's see what develops over the next couple of months, and maybe you can come back.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Next week, Hamilton County's newest commissioner. Have a good week.